Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Concussion Nerds podcast. And today we are joined by my new friend, Vanessa Blackstone. Vanessa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, so I need to introduce you guys to Vanessa and share how we got connected. So, okay, full disclosure, this is a Canadian US thing. Licensed, what is your professional title, Vanessa? I screw this up with everyone in your field because the terminology is different between our countries. What is your professional designation?
Yes. So I have my master's in social work. So when you come from the MSW, you pursue your LCSW, which is the licensed clinical social worker.
Okay.
Yeah, so
And that is you. Okay.
yes.
Licensed clinical social worker. Love it. Again, I don't know if that actually exists in Canada. Good old country differences. But here's how Vanessa and I connected. And I love when just things happen. And also, I want this to be a lesson for everyone listening to never be afraid to reach out because you just never know what's going to happen, right? So I read this book. You guys have heard me talk about it before. I've read this book called The Way Out by Alan Gordon, and I really loved it. Now, the book is written in the context of chronic pain and neuropathic pain, generally speaking. However, I've shared with you guys before, and Vanessa, you and I have had this conversation before too, about the significant overlap between persistent concussion and chronic pain. And the tools can work so beautifully that we use in chronic pain for persistent concussion. And so I read this book and I loved it. And I just loved the way it explained things and shared some of their success stories in the book. And so I went to the good old Google and I started Googling, how the hell do you reach Alan Gordon? And I
Very hard.
right? Well, still haven't reached Alan Gordon, but I got Vanessa Blackstone. So literally, I went on the internet, found their clinic, which is the pain psychology clinic, based in Los Angeles, but does virtual work all over the world. Found the clinic. I think I also found social media and messaged there, but nothing happened. And I emailed and phoned the clinic. I was persistent at the time, saying I would love to speak to Alan. However that process works, here's why. And then obviously the clinic connected me with Vanessa. So Vanessa is the executive director for the Pain Psychology Center or clinic in Los Angeles. And you guys embrace this concept and use this concept of pain reprocessing therapy. Yes?
Correct.
Beautiful. Okay. So this is how Vanessa and I got connected. And when I told her about the summit, she was super excited to come join us. And we're going to share, because you got some fun things coming too. So we're going to share those later in this pod because I think it's beautiful. And you're offering the summit participants such a gift. So I'm so excited for them. Vanessa, tell us a little bit about the center and your role within the center and a little bit about what pain reprocessing therapy is, because I know for a ton of people, this is going to be a brand new phrase and concept.
Yeah, absolutely. So our center, Pain Psychology Center, it started maybe, I don't even know, I think back in 2014 maybe, but I started in 2018. And when I started, there was only about 10 or 12 of us, and we used to meet at Alan's apartment for group supervision. And I would always fall asleep. To this day, he kind of makes fun of me that I used to squish myself into the corner of his couch. And he's a very tall guy, so his couch is the seat of it is really long. But when you don't have legs,
and when you're short like us, you can curl into a little ball.
Yeah, exactly. So I push myself into the corner of his couch, and every time I'd start to doze off. So anyways, that was our early days of Pain Psychology Center. I did listen to group supervision when I could, but it was in the evening, so that's my sleepy time. Anyways, we were a small group then, and this was before the book and before the research came out. So early days, we were all kind of a part of helping Alan pick the colors for the cover of the book and helping him with some chapter reviews, and then looking at pre-publishing of the research, and just all contributing, because we were all practicing. We were still trying to get buy-in from the medical community. People would reach out to us, finding us during some chronic pain recovery research, but they did not know at all what pain reprocessing therapy was. And then the book was published, The Way Out, and the research was published, I think, shortly after that, and it kind of just blew up, and it just exploded in a good way. We went from getting maybe 20 client referrals a month to about 170 a month. And then we went from our 10 or 12 clinicians to now we have 50 or over 50 people. And we have therapists, both of the marriage and family therapy licensure background or the licensed clinical social worker. We also have associates that are working towards licensure. We have interns in their final year of their master's program. And we also have a large amount of coaches. So people that are not necessarily therapists, but coaches, because I totally get it. A lot of times people will want to meet with someone who's not a therapist, and that's completely okay. And that's why we have them. We also have coaches that have a pretty unique background of experience with their own chronic pain, as many of our therapists do, with their own chronic pain and recovery, utilizing PRT or just learning about how they navigated through their own hurdles. So I think that's an important part.
So valuable.
Yeah, and we're just a very diverse group, diverse backgrounds, diverse identities, diverse stories, diverse licensures or not. And we just bring a big plethora of experience to people seeking some kind of recovery utilizing our modality of PRT.
I love it. I love that you take interns. I love that you take students. I love that you take people that aren't there yet, because I remember, now I was in physio school a long time ago, but when I was in physio school, our chronic pain unit, so when I'm talking about my concussion nerds program to people too, I always say my concussion education in physio school was 60 minutes.
Oh, wow.
60 minutes. And it was acute concussion and you shook it off. You were back in life in 3 days. That was literally my concussion education in physio school. My chronic pain education was not much better, right? Chronic pain doesn't get a ton of, and again, my physio school was over a decade ago. So I really hope things have evolved since then. But like my chronic pain education didn't come from my degree. I was lucky enough to go do a practicum at a clinic. And the clinic I actually did a practicum at was very orthopedic, but one of the leading pain science people in British Columbia practiced part-time out of that clinic.
Oh, wow.
And so I got this unexpected gift of getting to work with and do part of my practicum. I did 2 days a week. It just evolved that I got to work with, his name is Neil Pearson, and he was like one of the leading pain people in BC at the time. He probably still is, to be honest, with him. And everything I learned, he was so ahead of the thought process and like with the mind body connection of pain, and that not being actually like tissue based when we're in that chronic stage and those pieces of things. He was so ahead of his thinking that I learned so much from that practicum from him that I still pull on today. And so I love that your center embraces like that piece in teaching and the passion behind it to these up and coming social workers and up and coming therapists and students as well. I think that's so important.
Most of the people that we have that work for us were interns. So we hire the majority of them. Actually, my work wife, Giovanna, she is the head of our intake and she's the associate director. She was an intern when I got hired and we were just in the same cohort together. And I mean, yeah, it's an incredible thing to watch people grow from being a student here to a provider here. That's something that we love.
That's so good. So pain reprocessing therapy, that's a term. Like that is very much a thing. And so high level, we know on the summit, friends, Vanessa's going deep into this context on the summit for both clinicians and individuals on a healing journey. And she's on our live panels. So you are going to have some beautiful exposure to Vanessa to learn more from her. But on a really high level, Vanessa, what is pain reprocessing therapy?
Yeah. I like to break it down like word by word and reframe them, even if we. So, pain. The way that I reframe that is I like to say symptom. Sometimes I almost wish it was called symptom reprocessing therapy because it's not just about like chronic back pain. It is about vertigo and tinnitus and IBS and numbness or burning sensations at the bottom of our feet. A catch-all phrase. So if we need to ever change pain to symptoms, we can. I say this to clients all the time. We can call it symptom reprocessing. So reprocessing would then be taking the symptom that we are experiencing it and doing just that, reprocessing it, changing the way in which we perceive and respond to sensations of pain or other dysregulating symptoms, right? And then the therapy portion, it applies because we all are therapists. Again, however, I like to reword that in case anybody needs it and just use symptom reprocessing coaching symptom reprocessing therapy. People understand if you're reaching out to the Pain Psychology Center or anybody else for that matter, pursuing pain reprocessing therapy, it will still cover your symptom of vertigo. And if you're a coach or receiving it out of state or out of country, it can be applied in a coaching capacity. So it can be applied as symptom reprocessing coaching. So the essential basis of the work is changing the way in which you perceive and respond. We're trying to break the pain fear cycle or the symptom fear cycle in order to allow your brain and your body to get on sync together, to be in communication with one another, or the way that I like to say it, it's like couples therapy between you and your body.
Oh, I love
Something
it.
has happened where it feels like your body has sabotaged you and you guys are not communicating. And so what we're trying to do in this work is to get you on the same page, to get you to coexist so that it feels like you're working with your nervous system and your body and not against it.
Oh, I love this. So I'm going to throw a question at you. This just popped into my head. I prepped her with nothing, and so I'm really interested for your take on it and see how you answer this. So I'm going to say I feel like there's a little bit of two schools of thought right now. One school of thought is it's all about the mindset and changing the thought pattern and that process to then change the body. And then the other school of thought is we have to focus on the body and shifting the body and regulating the body and changing symptoms of the body, which then changes the mindset. Now, I know you can't separate. It's not one or the other. But to people who are falling hard in like one camp versus the other, because there are these two camps, what is your thought on that whole like context?
Yeah. So I think that, well, first of all, I think that I see both. I see absolutely both clients or both camps of clients. One where it's more so about like working on changing our mindset to get the buy-in to feel safer in our body. But
Mm-hmm.
then I see the other camp of people that do really feel like they believe this work, but it's still not working. And their body just feels so unsafe, but they are bought in. I see both camps of people. And what I like to emphasize to these clients is that, first of all, like, there's not one way to do this work, and there's not one way that pain works. There's so many different ways in which we get these signals of symptoms or chronic pain to our body. And that's why each individual case is so unique, even though stories are not unique in the slightest. The reality is each individual person is very unique. And so if somebody listens to the podcast, it's called Tell Me About Your Pain. If somebody reads Alan's book, The Way Out, and they're still feeling like there's something missing, that's the perfect opportunity to reach out for individual one-on-one support, because it's not that you're missing anything, and it's not that we're going to give you some like magic key or wand that's going to unlock this like world of healing. It's more that you might actually just need it tailored to you in a way that works for you so that you feel like this actually lands. It feels authentic. It feels like it's right for you. You understand it. So wherever you are at, there is a way to get creative with pain reprocessing therapy and apply it to you in a way that works, because your needs are unique and we have to tailor it for you.
I love that. I also want to hit on the like, I love that you said, we're not going to give you this magic pill of healing, right? And so I want to touch on this topic of consistency and showing up for ourselves day in and day out, knowing that we're moving towards like better health overall, and that knowing it's to stay the course even when you are kind of getting frustrated or things don't change right away. What is your thoughts on, and like when you're working with someone or coaching someone through pain reprocessing theory, because I know consistency is a big piece of it, how do you have that conversation with someone, especially when they're like, I feel like nothing's changing, like that piece of things?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. So I think you're right. Like, consistency is key. But there's two things before that I will address with someone: that no matter how consistent you are, if you are doing things with a sense of urgency and
Mhm.
intensity, it's not going to work, because you're just taking the same energy that you treat everything else with and applying it here and wanting it to be different. And it's not going to be. And so you could, a lot of the times I'll have a client start our first session, and we'll go to more in the summit, but they'll be like, well, when should I practice somatic tracking? Right? When should I like integrate somatic tracking, and how many times and for how long? Already I can start to hear that there's a sense of urgency and intensity. And if I tell you to practice it 3 times a day for 10 minutes each, that person is going to, and they're going to get stuck. So I like to have this conversation of addressing urgency and intensity in order to understand how to actually treat this differently so that you have a better chance at recovery. Because if we're taking the same fear and the same urgency to get better and applying it to the work, we're going to find ourselves right back where we started.
I love that. That's fantastic. And it's funny. It's like, I love the way you frame that, because I'll talk to clients too about, I'll have certain clients going to be like, I have this many months to get better. And like, do they like huge flags of like,
Totally. You're like, oh no.
of which my response usually is like, it's not going to work.
I know.
Because if you're putting that internal pressure on yourself, the amount of stress you're layering on to get this recovery, you're combating the good you could be doing.
I hate having to be that person that's like, oh, but I get it. I totally hear you. And trust me, I want to be right. I love being right. And I want to be the person that got you better. Like I do. I want to be a part of your journey, but I can't, I can't start that way. And already when you hear it, you're like, okay, so we're going to actually pull way back. And this person's going to be like, but like, how much should I be doing this work? Actually, we're going to be going in the opposite direction, and it's going to be real hard and uncomfortable. But slowing down and the urgency of things is going to be our ticket into being able to do this work in a way that actually helps them rewire those neural pathways.
And I know, I just meet more and more people who, it's funny, like when you start to figure out who you are and the tools and the beliefs that you have, you start to connect with other people who think very similarly. And I love it. And I know somatic tracking is obviously designed for pain reprocessing or symptom reprocessing therapy. And that's where it came from. But I also fall into this place where, and I say to my concussion clients all the time, the things we're getting you to do today, which are things like this, things like stillness, things like breath work, things like the other things that aren't the rehabby piece. I'm like, these are things that truly you're doing them because you have to, because we know they're going to facilitate your healing. But these are things that everyone should be doing.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And in truth, like somatic tracking falls into that category for me as well. Of like, it's just one of those tools that forces you in a beautiful way. So I don't say force in a bad way, but forces in a good way to slow down and to be present and to be aware and to have fun. It's funny. Like the first time I did it, I guided someone through an exercise once, and it was so fun because obviously we want, again, like to not be, to kind of pull back from that intensity, to keep it light and fun. Like we turned her into like a beautiful butterfly, and she like described her butterfly as she like fluttered around inside her body and like saw her pain, and like this tool and this ability, which is why I'm so excited to hear more about it in the summit too. But I do think it's one that we could extrapolate and should be extrapolating to real life for everyone else, because it's such a gift of presence.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Love that, because it's so true. And as you were talking, I was like thinking all of a sudden, like, I think I use effortlessly because I've been doing this for so long, but I think I use somatic tracking all the time, like constantly. Like when I'm eating, when I'm driving, when I'm playing with my dogs, when I'm getting up in the morning, when I'm doing my face routine. Like I think when I'm arguing with my significant other, I think I use it all the time, where I'm like I feel the pit in my stomach for no reason. I'm just putting my makeup on. Let's drop our shoulders and let's just slow down. I think I do it all the time. And so when you're saying that, I think it's such a good reminder that we're not just talking about learning about this work for symptoms, because we don't want your symptoms to be your whole life and your whole story. We want you to recover, but we have to know how to integrate this in so many areas of our life. And that's why it's important to pull down from the urgency and the intensity to do this right about your symptoms, because we're trying to get you to do this overall and just take a step back when you feel that rush to always be getting through something, whether it's work, a situation at home, or something symptom related.
I love it. Oh, I feel like we could talk forever. I feel like also you came about this work through your own journey.
Yes. 100%.
Right. And
yes.
Are you open to sharing some of your own path and your own successes with this work? And because I know that's a piece of why you're so passionate about it today.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I have a long story. I'm one of those people that has had symptoms since I was 11, but I'm also one of those people that have had like 7 or 8 different symptoms. So they started out as migraines. It's almost like a rite of passage with women in my family. Once you start menstruating, like, oh, you're going to have menstrual migraines. And that was just expected almost. And then once I started getting them, it was, yep, this is that time and you're just going to have to deal with them forever. And I expected to just have them forever. But then they started getting worse. They started becoming more often and the symptoms were growing. It went from just menstrual migraines to like consistent vestibular migraines throughout the week that, as many people know, leads to nausea, vertigo, like just a lot, like aura kind of sensations, to a lot of sensitivity to sound, things that you look at, light, all the good stuff. And then when I was in high school, I started playing rugby. It's my favorite sport. I love it. And it's really rough. But after a few concussions, I started having more migraines and more intensity in the symptoms and more intensity in how they lasted. They were no longer just menstruation. It was a couple of times a month and they would last for 3 to 5 days. And I would be completely taken out when I had them, like to the point where just walking, it felt like I was constantly walking on foam. Like nothing was stable and nothing was grounded and everything was like vibrating around me. And I was told, I think at like a second or a third concussion, maybe, I think I was told at one point by some provider that if I got one more, then I was doomed. I don't even know what wording they used, but if I got one more, and then what happened? I got one more. And ever since then, it just completely destroyed like the relationship I had and how to deal with this.
Of course it did.
All I could keep thinking was like, I also, outside of this, I also have my own journey with like imposter syndrome. I have my own journey with, and I'm sure I share this because I know a lot of people can relate. So I want it to feel validating, but I have my own journey with feeling smart enough. And I had this provider say that having this many concussions can affect like your cognitive ability, your ability to think properly. And that scared me. And so when I noticed that I was having some more symptoms, fatigue, inability focusing, also felt like I was stuttering more. There was a lot of things that now that I look back, I could actually label as neuroplastic, but it was coming from a place of fear and uncertainty and feeling like I wasn't talking the right way, that I think that whole relationship just shifted after that last
This
concussion.
is just like, to pause for a second too, like if you're listening to this and if you're a provider listening to this, like this just speaks to the awareness you have to have in the languaging you choose with your clients.
Yeah.
Like when someone tells you if you have one more concussion, you're doomed, like again, it's just conscious awareness. Like we need to be so aware and so intentional with the wording we choose to use with our clients because we don't know all histories. We don't know how things are going to be processed. We don't know how that's going to be internalized. And yes, keep going.
You're so right. Like I think language is everything. And I know that's something that we're really careful. I mean, I know that we're therapists and coaches and we're not medical providers, but like we do help our clients reframe some of the language that they were told about their body, and myself included. And so, yeah, I went on this long journey of symptoms getting worse and worse. I ended up getting pelvic floor pain. I also ended up getting chronic hives. I would break out if I was stressed, especially if my head hurt. And then I started getting neck pain, and everything just kind of grew from there until I was in grad school. And grad school was when it was at its worst. It was so bad. It was turning into really intense IBS symptoms because my head would hurt so bad and I'd be so tense for the 3-hour classes that we would have in grad school. And when I ended up applying to a PhD program at the end of graduate school graduation, I was talking to my grandfather, who's my mentor, and I was just telling him I was miserable and I just wanted graduation to be over because I just wanted to get into the PhD program and get to the next thing. And I'm a very type A person. So, perfectionism, people pleasing, powering through are my strengths, I guess. And my grandfather was like, I don't think this is how you should start a PhD. He's like, I think you're going to struggle if you go right now. And so I decided to defer. And that's when I started looking into my own recovery. Actually, no, I lied. I was looking into what job I should get next, but then I found my own recovery in the
Okay.
summer.
So type A driven, push through everything. Vanessa was still driving the boat at this point, even though grad school wasn't happening.
Exactly. She thought that she was tricking herself and everyone else and saying that, like, okay, we're going to pause. But nope, my brain was like, okay, what next? And like, I'm ready for the next thing. And so that's when I realized, and I didn't really hear about this work with post-concussion syndrome until I had a client with post-concussion syndrome. And there were a lot of symptoms that they were questioning: the fatigue, the dizziness, the head pain, because as we know, there is a lot of symptoms within pain reprocessing therapy that look exactly the same, but they're not equated to post-concussion. And so this person thought maybe that this could work for them. And when they came into my caseload, I thought, you're right, actually. Fatigue, head pain, vertigo.
Were they describing you a little bit?
I know, exactly. And so when they were saying this, I was like, I think that it could work for that. But this was new, and there wasn't many conversations about this, and there wasn't the book yet, and as many people that know about it. So I kind of began taking the work that we know, the conversations of amplification of symptoms that I'll talk more about in the summit, but applying that same conversation to the fact of, okay, something has actually happened to your body, but what is our narrative here? What is the way in which we're treating ourselves? What is the language that we're using for why we experience what we do? How are we responding to these symptoms? Same thing as pain reprocessing therapy for back pain that is entirely neuroplastic. And the thing is that it worked. It worked for this client. It worked for me. It allowed me to recognize that a lot of the kind of snowballing symptoms that I was experiencing, that I was told were a result of post-concussion syndrome, did not have to be related to the fact that I have had those injuries and that recovery was possible. So that's kind of what interested me in being a part of this summit, is that I can relate to that story, and I can relate to things actually happening to your body and not knowing what your recovery timeline will look like, and how useful it can be to apply this perspective.
Oh, I love it. I love it. When you applied this to yourself, because I know you, like, how did it change your life?
I use one example because this one example would, what I like to call, would color the rest of my day. And the one example that I use with clients, and anytime that I share this, is the biggest symptom that had a hold on me was fatigue. That chronic fatigue right when you wake up in the morning, the moment that you open your eyes and your head's starting to hurt a little bit, you're kind of feeling room spinny sensation, and you just get hit with this wave of fatigue, especially if you know that you've been asleep for the last 8-9 hours. The way that I like to practice this work at the start of my day that can change the color for the rest of the day is being in bed and recognizing that all of these sensations are coming in, but the fatigue is this overarching theme. And what I will do is I will let myself be tired. I will be as tired as I possibly can be. I'm like, bring it on. Let's be tired. We're just waking up. Are my feet tired? Are my legs tired? No, my legs feel nice. Is my bottom tired? No, that's okay too. Is my belly tired? Kind of. It's kind of nice, and breathing really gently. My shoulders, was clenching those for no reason. Let's drop into my body a little bit more and get really heavy. And what about my face? My eyes are tired. Okay, maybe a little bit. And my jaw, and so on. And I'll go through this whole body exercise of be tired. Before you put your feet on the ground, let's be tired. Let's let the sensation exist in our body, and let's figure out where. And the more that we explore this, and the more that we lean into it, the moment that we put our feet down on the ground and we go to stand up, our theme for however long we need it to be is to be tired. So that means I move slow, I talk slow, I don't rush into hurrying up to take my dogs on a walk before a session within an hour when I then have a full day of work. I try to slow down, just be tired. And I kid you not, probably within the first now 20, 30 minutes, it's usually gone. And nowadays that I've done this for so long, I don't even think I really wake up with that same perspective of I'm tired. So I don't even think I do the exercise. I don't think I do this anymore. But when I need it, it's there. Right. So be tired. is kind of my approach. And that can really help change the way in which I respond to a lot of uncomfortable things in my body.
I think I love that we're going to like wrap it up here because I'm like, we could just keep going. But that concept in itself is so the opposite of what so many people feel like they need to feel in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you to go deeper in this on the summit. I think you're going to pour so much value into both the clinicians and those on a healing journey. Both tracks are so gifted and like so lucky to have you part of it. Thank you. It has been a pleasure getting to know you and continuing to. When you sign up for the summit, Vanessa actually you have your own workbook coming out.
I do.
This fall. And as a summit participant, Vanessa has beautifully gifted us a exclusive offer and savings for her workbook. So as a summit participant, you will get that link so that you can purchase it. It comes out in the fall, right?
Yes.
It's like right around summit time we can pre-order. Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you for that as well. If you have not already signed up for the summit, please do. The links are below. You can join free if you need to join us free, or you can sign up for the VIP pass. And as a VIP pass, you're going to have access to Vanessa to ask her more questions in the live Q&A panel. Clinicians, she's actually joining us for the live Q&A and for the business panel as well, as she is an executive director of how many people are in that clinic? Like 50 something?
Now. Yes, I think. 50.
Yeah. Right. Her skills. I was like, we were talking. Vanessa was not originally going to be part of the business panel. And then we were talking about her actual like role. She's like, I'm the executive director and there's like 50 some odd staff. And I was like, you got some skills we all need to learn about too. So I'm so excited to have you part of this. Thank you so much for being here, Vanessa. Again, thank you for joining us. We will be back next week. Jump below. Come join us in this summit, September 21st and 22nd. And we will see everybody then. Have a great day. That's today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a share, give us a tag on Instagram, and please never hesitate to reach out. We love communicating and connecting with you. Until next week, my friends, have a marvelous day.